Okay, so on today's episode of Reiki Radio, we have one of my favorite people. Her name is Sam Cellier of Northern Light Reiki. Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for finally coming on. Really, truly, I've been looking forward to this for some time. So
I'm sorry it's taken me so long.
No, it's okay. We all come when we're ready. So perfect timing. And actually, it really is perfect timing because I can't wait to hear about the retreat that you have coming up, the Reiki retreat. But first, I just want to share with everyone a little bit about your background because you are now a Reiki master teacher, but you were in a different line of work prior. So can you just share with us a little bit of your background, how you got into this work, and why it's been so impactful for you?
Yeah, my background is in, my education was in counselling and psychotherapy. And after leaving university, I worked for different organisations that supported victims of crime, predominantly serious sexual crimes, sexual abuse, domestic violence, things like that. And after doing that sort of work for about 10 years, I did have complete burnout from it. So emotionally draining. Although it was rewarding, it was really emotionally draining. So by this point, I'd had a couple of children, and my second daughter had just been born. And both of my babies were really difficult babies. They both had severe colic. They were lactose intolerant. So being a mum when you've got a newborn and they're like that, it's so tough. It was really, really difficult. And to compound that as well, I had a hernia in my groin, and I had to have an operation that was like having a cesarean section.
Wow.
After having a child. So I already had a baby in arms that was a really difficult baby, but then had to have this operation on top of that. So had the operation and was completely exhausted. And Reiki came back to me at that point. It was literally like I woke up one day and thought, I need to have some Reiki. And I'd been lucky enough to have Reiki when I was in my late teens, early 20s. One of my friends was attuned to Reiki and used to practice on me, which was fabulous. And I don't think I really realised at that point just how amazing Reiki was. Mm. It was when it returned to my life at a point where I really needed healing that it just took off. So a lady came to give me a Reiki session who became my Reiki master. We had a healing session. She came round to my house and it was amazing. And I just said to her when she's finished, I want to be able to do what you can do. That's just amazing. So I went on to do my Reiki 1, Reiki 2. I did Reiki Plus with her, which is Tibetan Reiki, and then my Reiki Master Teacher with her as well.
It's so interesting to hear you say that, because I think a lot of people have that experience of, initially they're like, I don't know, like with Reiki, like, I don't know, maybe I felt something, I'm not sure. And then some point down the line, maybe it finds their way back to them and it's like they were ready now, right? Like you come to this space where it's like, now you're ready. Yeah. So what was that like for you at that second go round, when it was like a space where you needed healing and you were actually looking for it for yourself? What was that experience like? I mean, on the receiving end.
To be having Reiki at that time. It was a wonderful treatment that I got from my Reiki teacher, but it was interesting because when I think back about that session that I had with her, it wasn't so much how I felt throughout the session, but it was like when I came round afterwards, I just felt that I had this calling. There was something going, you've got to do this. Yeah. And it was so much more than for me. It didn't feel like you've got to do this to heal yourself. It was kind of like a calling on a much bigger scale.
Yes. And so now you're in a space where you are teaching Reiki. And I know just from being connected with you in conversations we have on the back end, you are very connected to your work. And it does seem very important to you that, I guess if you say like, being of service feels like it's something that really matters to you, is the best way to describe how you are. So for people who may have already done 1 and 2 and they're kind of on the fence about doing level 3, what is your point of view around that? Like, do you think it's only for people who want to teach, or would you recommend it for people who just want to go deeper into their practice?
No, I think your journey with Reiki, my Reiki master kind of made it out that if you do Reiki master teacher level, you have almost an obligation to go on and teach, which I know that puts a lot of people off, because a lot of people will think, oh, I don't feel confident enough to, or maybe they don't want to do it for that reason.
Right.
Now, the level of clearing that takes place after Reiki attunements, for some people it's not too severe, you know, they kind of will through it, which is wonderful. I feel a bit jealous of people that are like that. Whereas for people like me, it's dramatic, it's huge. But how I felt after going through these really difficult clearings, I mean, one of which brought me to my knees, it was really, really tough to go through. But how I felt on the other side of that was like a completely different person. It was like I'd been reborn. Everything that was kind of holding me back, I managed to let go of. So I don't think that if you go to Reiki master level, I think it's, you kind of missing out yourself if you don't go on to teach, because I love doing attunements. Attunement days are like the icing on the most delicious cake going.
Yeah.
They are fantastic. It's a really special experience. But I also understand that a lot of people are quite shy and nervous of doing things like that. So it's down to the individual, I think, and it can have the most dramatic clearing effects on you. And the further you seem to go, the more that seems to clear. So if you're wanting to do it for personal reasons and not for the whole, basically you doing that for yourself anyway is working for the whole anyway. So,
right.
So I would say to people, you should go for it. I certainly wouldn't turn away someone who wanted to come and do Reiki master training who wasn't prepared to teach. I would want to know, you know, their personal reasons for doing it.
Yeah. And I really love that you say that, what you mentioned, especially after the attunement process, because I know we're going to talk about some, a point of interest for people, especially linked to after being attuned to Reiki. But that, what you said, like the deep level of healing that occurs, a lot of us find ourselves resisting that and like being angry about it because of the idea of like, oh, I'm supposed to feel so great after this. So when you were in that space of going through what may have felt like a healing crisis, how did you navigate that? And did you ever get to a point where you just went, okay, I know what this is, so I have to deal with it?
Yeah, it was actually, I mean, I had discussions with my husband that was basically saying, I can't believe you've done something like this that would cause, you know, this to take place. Look at the mess that you're in, sort of thing. And it was only through sort of talking to other people who had been attuned to Reiki and also getting support from my Reiki master that it was, this is part of a much, much deeper clearing for you. You know,
Right.
It doesn't affect everybody like this.
Right.
People that have got a lot of negativity around them and things that they've brought through with them, they will go through these sorts of extremes. So it did make it easier once I had that realization. And things like, I mean, this didn't come until way after my attunements, but I kind of wish, and I provide this for my Reiki masters and my Reiki students, I wish I'd have read the Dark Night of the Soul article. I wish that had been part of the preparation,
right?
Because it kind of was that experience of the Dark Night of the Soul. So I do provide that. I provide really interesting articles for people about other people's experiences, just in case they start to go down that line and think, oh, hell, what's going on here?
That's a good, yeah, because I had never even heard of that until like after I was already in the thick of it. And by the time I heard that term, I was already like dealing with it enough that I didn't, you know, but it would have been helpful to have known about that up front too. But one of the things I wanted to ask you about that too is, like you said, everyone's experience is different. And it's like, regardless of what you have immediately after, whether it's like you feel so alive and like, woo, or you go straight into the healing crisis, has your own experience been that you've noticed like the continuation of your process, even throughout the years, while maybe not as drastic, but what has that been for you?
You keep on clearing.
Yeah.
You do. It keeps happening. It's like this constant sort of unlayering of who you are, and sort of coming round to the real sort of who am I inside, and it's, we don't realize how much the influence of people around us and what's going on in our external world blocks us from understanding who we are and what we are, and also stops us from actually stepping into being ourselves,
Right.
being our authentic selves. So Reiki, just, if you live Reiki, and I do live Reiki, I don't just practice Reiki, Reiki is a part of my everyday life. And if you live Reiki, then you are constantly paying attention to that work on yourself.
Yes.
So you are constantly clearing in many ways, and it's like that. Ooh, up, down. Sometimes you have fantastic ups. Sometimes you have really difficult lows as well. But you learn to navigate. You do learn to navigate it, and then the tough times, as you keep doing this process, they get easier.
Yes.
So you have a greater understanding of why things are happening. You understand that the difficulties and the difficult lessons and the difficult people are teaching you. These are lessons, it's teachers that come into your life so that you learn and you grow with that.
Yeah. No, I love that you say that, because it's one of the things I think I'm so thankful for about coming into this work and this practice is I was so not aware of myself, and if you would have asked me before this work, I would have thought, absolutely, I know who I am, but I didn't realize that what I was portraying and how I was being was so much connected to just expectations that were put on me, or programming, or like how I was processing experiences without understanding, right? And so, yeah, like when you come in that space, two things you said that really struck me is you do start to see yourself, but like from the inside, but that you come into this deep awareness of observation of you and recognizing how you are triggered and why, and everyone and everything you recognize as teachers. And I think that's one of the most beautiful gifts of this work.
Yeah. And I think that's the reason why Reiki and meditation just go hand in hand together, because the meditation side of things helps you to shut off from the external world and to go inwards, and then to become the observer of who you are. And meditation, ever since I've done Reiki, meditation came more and more into my life, to the point where I do run meditation groups myself and guide people through meditations. But meditation has helped me to change the person that I am. It's helped me to deal with things in such different ways, and to be a calmer person and more compassionate. You just can't help but do that when you begin to turn your attention inwards, because you start off with yourself, basically. You turn your attention inwards and you realize, gosh, I'm not being that kind with myself in this way, and I'm not being caring with myself in that way, and I'm not being really loving if I'm doing that, if I'm holding on to all these difficult emotions that are causing me pain. So you begin to start to learn how to release things and to let go through meditation. And as I say, you become more authentic, and it helps you to deal with situations, especially difficult situations, a lot more calmer. I mean, a lot of people will say to me nowadays, oh, you're so calm, the way that you deal with things. And I'll say, my God, before this, I was not. Because I wasn't. People used to refer to me as being quite hot-headed. And
me too.
Yes. And it really has. It's really changed me. And I think that you do have to change your personality. And this is, I think it's Joe Dispenza that says, you've got to change your personality to change your personal reality. The way that your external world is, you've got to change your internal world. And that's what happens, and it's for the better. It is for the better.
You know, it's so interesting. I literally was thinking about this driving the other day, how some people have a hard time with the idea when we say, like, the work is about you, it's focusing on you, taking care of you, because for a lot of us, it translates as, well, that's so selfish, you know? But I was thinking about it from the way of course, like the more loving you can be for you, just like you said at the very beginning, that benefits everyone around you. Because if you're more loving with you, you're going to be more loving to others. If you're more compassionate, understanding with you, you're going to be more compassionate and understanding with others. Whereas on the other side, like if you are hypercritical with yourself, beating yourself up, all these things, that's exactly what you project out to everyone else. So
Absolutely.
I'm so glad you pointed that out.
Yeah.
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 So another thing you said was observation. And this is something, you know, we talked about behind the scenes, that there's a different way we start to observe ourselves when we come into this work, and even after the attunement process. So I know we're going to talk a little bit about like attunement and that connection to our intuitive mind and being able to see differently. What was your personal experience with that? Were you very intuitive prior to this work, or did you recognize it before?
Do you know what? I've always been empathic. I've always been somebody that would stick up for the underdog. I've been protective over people who have had vulnerabilities.
Yes.
And I've always been that sort of person because I've had confidence in myself. And if I'd seen something going on that wasn't right, treating someone else badly, then I would stand up for that person. So I knew that I always had this sort of empathy about me, because I would feel other people's pain when someone else was going through something bad. It would really upset me. Even as a kid, I can remember as a kid crying for other people because of how I felt that they felt.
Right.
So I didn't recognise that as being empathy when I was younger, and how this has sort of progressed from after doing the attunements has been that everything's just kind of become heightened. But it's become something that, because it was heightened and all these senses and emotions got heightened, it kind of takes you down this pathway of self-discovery about what it's all about. So you learn about what an empath is, and you learn about intuition and how that can increase and things like that. So yeah, it's I think that I always did have it there, but I just, prior to attunement, wasn't sure exactly what it was. But I mean, even the work that I did, you know, being in counselling and psychotherapy, and, you know, dealing with people who have been through really abusive situations, and trying to assist them to make their lives better.
Yeah.
That was the job. So it's always been a running theme to try and help people on a healing process.
Right.
And Reiki just changed it in a very magical way.
You know, so two things came up while you were saying this, and it reminds me of what you said, how it heightens, things heighten. And I also was very sensitive to energy prior to this, but I didn't understand why or what that meant. So for me, it was very annoying, and it was something I didn't like it at all, like to the point where I would avoid going certain places or being around certain people, because I just didn't have the awareness of what I was feeling or why that shift in my mood happened or these types of things. And so once I did Reiki and had my attunements and I started to see differently, the energy actually heightened itself, where everything became even more intensified. But it also is what helped me stop seeing it as something was wrong with feeling and understanding how to navigate what I was feeling. So do you find that a lot of people who struggle with their sensitivity, whatever it may be, whether it's intuitive or empathic, do you find that there is something that settles with them once they come into seeing it differently?
I imagine that's right, but it's also what I found with Reiki is the fact that because these things get heightened, everybody's journey with Reiki is different.
Yes.
And the kind of path that you then follow after attunements is completely unique and personal to you.
Yes.
So I think then that the information after you've had an attunement is something that will heighten all these sensitivities,
Mm-hmm.
you then kind of start to follow all these breadcrumbs. You follow these breadcrumbs for your path, which
Yes.
is leading you to your alignment, basically, aligning your soul with what it is that you came here to do. So I think that you go up and down with that as well. You'll go through phases. I've done it where I've thought, I've got all this. I know what I'm doing. I know why I'm here. I know what all this is about. And then it's like I hit a brick wall and feel like I've sort of gone back about 10 miles thinking,
Yeah.
oh no, I'm actually lost again. I need to speak to Yolanda. So yeah, it's a path unfolding, isn't it? And sometimes you go through these phases of everything making complete sense, of real clarity,
Mm-hmm.
of heightened clarity, in fact, where you feel really, really good about things. And then I say I'm getting myself into a spiritual spin, I call it, because my head will start spinning. I'll be thinking, oh, this doesn't make sense. That's not working out right. And so, yeah, it's difficult. It goes up and down. But again, it's just like this journey of spirituality.
Oh,
You've got to ride the
totally.
wave.
Yeah, no, totally. When you said that, it reminds me of one of the things that kind of, hit me was recognizing that there were no absolutes, because it was exactly like that sound where I would think like, oh, I figured it out. I'm in a groove. Like everything's working out. Oh, it's so great. And it would be like that for a minute. And then you hit that wall and it's like, oh no, I was wrong. What happened? And it took a while for me to recognize like, we're constantly evolving. We're constantly shifting. And it does feel like these cycles of initiation, right? It's like we get over the one hump, we work through whatever it is we work through. We feel like, it's great. And then here comes another cycle, another layer of healing.
That's it. Yeah, definitely. And the thing with Reiki, though, is the fact that the more that you go through Reiki, the more that you practice Reiki every day, and the more that you have Reiki in your life, whether you go to Reiki Master or not, but the more that you use Reiki on yourself, the greater you find that you are navigating these tidal waves that come through.
Yes.
That's just what happens. I feel like it comes into your life, and we are taught to self-heal at Reiki level 1 for that reason.
Yes.
So it's like, work on yourself, girl. You've got to look after yourself, and when these waves come, you know what to do to get through it.
Yeah, that is such a huge message, I think, because it is so exciting, when we learn. And most people come into this work, they really want to support other people. It's part of, the calling to this, I think. But a lot of times when we focus outside of us and forget to work on ourselves, it can cause a bit of a headache, or not a headache. It can cause a bit of a tailspin, because then our self-work, it's like all of that bubbles up just waiting to reveal. And that's where people end up feeling like they've done something wrong, but it's just that they didn't start with that self-connection. Okay, so we had just a slight little hiccup, but yeah, so we're just talking about how working on ourselves is so important to how we experience this whole process. And it even helps with how we end up holding space for other people. And that's the part I think is very important for people to know.
Yeah. On a kind of practical level with that as well, when I did my degree in counselling and psychotherapy, that's even something that is hammered home for you then, that it's you that you've got to get right first before you then go out and help other people. Because if you're not right sort of within your own faculties, then how are you going to be able to go and help somebody kind of straighten out their own? Right. So that's why when you are a trained psychotherapist or counsellor, it's important that you have monthly supervision. And I suppose in a way that kind of your self-healing, and also doing things like Reiki shares and making sure that you do have a community, is your way of doing that similar sort of work with yourself. Because it is about you first, and you will
feel that you go through phases of healing whereby you feel like you've done so much work on yourself. And it is okay to do that as well. It's okay to have phases and times of recoil whereby you kind of think, you know what, I've got to spend some time on me before I then go on and help other people. And that's absolutely fine, because as we were saying about sort of the path going up and down, you hit these difficult periods, and if you don't pay attention to yourself or keep giving to everyone else, you're going to experience it a lot more difficultly. So
I'm glad you said that. Some friends and I were just talking about that yesterday, so curious to see what your thoughts are about it. But like I was saying, when I first started this work, I took some time where I literally had to hermit, and I kind of like dropped off because I was just focused on myself for a while. And then I like slowly integrated back into, you know, connecting with other people and all of these things. And I think sometimes people feel a need for that, like need some, like, even if it's 5 minutes a day, whatever they can figure out, like they just need a moment to themselves. But there's a lot of guilt around that. Like, how do you, or what would you say to someone if they're like, well, is there something wrong with sometimes just needing to be by myself?
Yeah, absolutely not. I've personally, I mean, we've had a lot of change. We've moved, we've relocated and stuff. But I've very much for the past probably year now been in a phase of recoil whereby I've not been that willing to put myself out there.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I've had a lot of things that I've been doing in the background that have been more work that I can do in solitude, in quiet, and that's been the sort of work I think that's kind of helping me to re-emerge again.
Yes.
But you've got to listen to yourself when you need to do things like that. When you need time out from the norm, when you need to spend time on your own, you need to listen to that, because if you don't and you force yourself into these situations, you're putting in resistance energy and you are going against what your needs truly are. And that just makes the whole situation worse.
Oh, that's so true. It reminds me of, I did the podcast, I think, for 2 or 3 years straight. And then I took an entire year off. Like I had to walk away from it. And in that space, just like you said, I was working on me and some other things behind the scenes, but I had to step away, and then, you know, came back after a year when I felt ready to. But I think that's one of the big things too, is just learning to acknowledge what we need, and then really making time or whatever we can do to honor that.
Yeah. And like you say, when you take time out, how you said it, you had about a year out. Sometimes when we give ourselves these phases of time to sort of get ourselves together, what then emerges is far greater than what we were doing before. You know, sometimes you need to sort of have this time of almost building energy, you know, a sort of reboot of yourself and recharge of yourself, time out from the norm of what you'd normally do, so that when you do emerge again, you've got this kind of different vibe about you, and you can do even more than what you were doing before.
So true. So now, I mean, this is actually like a really good segue to another thing. I know there are some things you wanted to share about some synchronicities that you have been noticing. And this is a big thing too, like people wonder about, what is that? What do you mean, like synchronicities, or how do I even like click into those? What goes on with that? So what has been your experience around it, and what have you experienced more recently?
Do you know, synchronicities are just part of this magical path that we're on. And at first I used to say that, you know, synchronicity is just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence, you know, like, you know, very flippantly. And when I sort of looked into coincidences, because things after I'd done my Reiki attunement, things seemed to be happening more often, sort of really unexplainable things, really connected things. And I started to look into the fact that these are in fact synchronicities. Even when you see it as that and begin to call it a synchronicity rather than a coincidence, they then start to come even stronger. And synchronicities really are like a communication of sort of source energy it's almost like you're striking up a communication with the universe, with your higher self, that connection within you, that inner wisdom that's connected to everything.
I love that description, Sam. I don't think I've ever heard anyone describe it that way. I love that.
Oh, good. Point for me. Yeah. That's what it feels like. It feels like you're opening up a line of communication with your higher self, really. And the more that you pay attention to synchronicities, the more that you can be guided on your path by them. And sometimes it's just crazy. It's, just crazy bonkers things will happen. You'll be thinking about doing a course or something like that, and then your inbox will ping and it'll be an enrollment for a course that you've been fancying doing and stuff. But the thing that happened that I'd said that I wanted to mention, in fact, I even had to write it down. My husband texted me this because it happened on Saturday. And Dale and I, my husband, we've been having a conversation whilst we had the kids still up and stuff. We've been talking about the fact that I was going to be on the podcast and things that I was going to talk about. And I'd said, I'd like to speak about synchronicities. Lots of people are really interested in synchronicities. And the more that you talk about it, then people go, oh, I'm having them. Oh, my God, that's what it's about. And they love sort of talking about the experiences people have. So we're talking about that and the fact that I was going to be on the podcast. And then the conversation, I don't know how, but it kind of went on to the fact that I don't really meat anymore. I've not eaten meat for over a year. I kind of feel that that's to do with my sort of consciousness rising and to do with the work that I do. I literally never thought I wouldn't be a meat eater, but now I just do red meat. I just cannot eat at all. And I was talking about this on Facebook. There's a pig called Esther the Wonder Pig.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen her. She's a rescue pig. She pretty much lives in the owner's house. Her best friend is a dog called Phil and a turkey called Cornelius. And it's these lovely videos of these pig, dog and turkey that all love knocking about together, that are all rescued, and they've all got wonderful personalities. And I was saying it's speciesist to say, well, it's all right for me to have a dog in my house because they're this way, but it's, we wouldn't have a pig in the house because, pigs aren't as good as dogs or whatever. We eat pigs. But the thing with that is pigs, when they are nurtured and loved, act like the dogs do, and they're actually really intelligent.
Smart.
Really intelligent animals, and so cute. This Esther the Wonder Pig is amazing. And then even the turkey comes over for a cuddle, and when it's hot it goes and stands by the fan and things like that. So we'd had this conversation about being speciesist over animals. So we'd had a couple of glasses of wine, and we put the telly on, and Pulp Fiction was on. Have you seen Pulp Fiction?
Yes.
The movie? Yeah. So we're watching Pulp Fiction, and I'd actually fallen asleep. And it was near the end of the film, and it was the scene where John Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson, towards the end, they get missed. There's a guy that comes out of the bathroom with a gun and he misses them. And they're like, oh my God, this is divine intervention, And Samuel L. Jackson decides to retire because of that experience, because we're just like, this is a sign from God. I shouldn't be doing this work. So they go to have some breakfast, and it's in where they go to have breakfast that then the place gets held up by Tim Roth and his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. Now, the conversation they have in that cafeteria where they're having breakfast is about being speciesist, about whether or not, why it's not okay to eat certain animals. And then Tim Roth comes in with his girlfriend Yolanda and holds up the place while Samuel L. Jackson's talking about divine intervention, which is, we were like, my husband were like, oh my God, Sam tried to win it, Sam. So he'd sent me a text so that he would remember to tell me. And when he looked at the time that the text had sent to me, it was at 11 minutes past 1.
Oh, wow.
And that's about sort of divine intervention and manifestation. And so it was like, things like that just seem to be happening they can pass for us. And it's to the point where it's like jaw-dropping, where you think, I just can't believe that this is happening.
Yeah.
But I can't remember what it was that I'd read, but even Freud, he even wrote about synchronicities, about the fact that he was psychoanalyzing a patient, and they were talking about the Egyptian scarab beetle, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point of us, they were talking about that. A scarab beetle, a beetle actually flew in through the window. So even he talks about synchronicity, how what's going on in your external world, you then manifest into your external world.
Isn't it amazing? I always see that too as like confirmations for me. And since you say that, I have to say I had one recently where I was in a meditation and a particular book that I hadn't read in years popped in my mind during a meditation. And so I thought, like, okay, I'll start reading the book. And it's one of those very esoteric books. And something told me, like, no, translate what you're reading. Like, don't just read it. Like, take notes of what you think it means. So I did this for a couple of weeks. And then, like, I came across this group of people that I used to know a long time ago, where they were studying this book. And they were going to have an event where the whole discussion was just around this book. And I had reached a spot where I was telling my partner, I wish I had someone to talk to about this stuff. And then this group pops up that they're having the discussion of the book. Yeah. I love things like that.
Yeah. And that really does, I mean, whether it's the Reiki attunements themselves, or whether it's just paying attention to your spirituality. Because to me, spirituality is basically about just believing in yourself. Yeah. It's about self-belief is spirituality. It's kind of not about believing in sort of someone judging us from above the clouds, or something outside of ourselves. It's about turning your attention inwards and believing what's going on within you, and then you project that out.
You know, when you say, it reminds me of what you said at the beginning of the conversation, how we come into a different way of observing ourselves, and how you also mentioned, you know, some people call it, what do you call it? Not synchronicity, but coincidence. Mm-hmm. So it seems like when we're in a space, just a different type of space, and we default to coincidence, it's kind of dismissive, right? It's kind of dismissive of the awe and wonderment that could really be around this like divine alignment and this communication, like you say, between us and the universe. So it's kind of like the only difference between those terms is a matter of like our state of perception. Like, are we dismissing what is so amazing, or are we allowing ourselves to be in awe of just how much we are in sync with the universe?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think a lot of, as human beings, we are conditioned to be dismissive over anything that's like that. You know, it's so many people think that, you know, the kind of work that I do is woo-woo, and it's, you know, that you're crazy, that you've gone bonkers if, you know, you're doing this sort of stuff. But I feel sorry for people like that, simply because they're missing out on so much amazing stuff, on really wonderful, life-changing things. I mean, if you'd have met me sort of 10, 15 years ago from now, you would have never thought that I would be doing this sort of work. Yeah. It's transformational, but in a really, really wonderful way, really wonderful way.
It's such an amazing thing. And I think too, just with you saying that will give people an opportunity to consider how they notice those events. Like, are you in awe when you notice those synchronicities, or do you dismiss it? And when we were talking about intuition before, that's also another thing we commonly dismiss, mainly because of what we've been taught about it. But, you know, people will say, and I'm sure you've noticed this in the classes you've taught, where you may ask someone, oh, what was your experience? And they're like, oh yeah, I saw a bird and I saw a cat and I saw some purple, but I mean, I didn't see anything. It's like, what? You just told me exactly what you saw. Like, you're dismissing, So we do have a lot of conditioning to work through around that too, being so
Yeah.
dismissive of experiences we have.
Yeah, definitely. And as your intuition increases, it's about learning to trust what
Right.
you're getting as well. Because, you know, we are born intuitive,
Yeah.
but we are conditioned out of it. Our education system is about facts and information and intellect. So we develop the left-hand side of the brain, but then the creative, intuitive right-hand side of the brain gets underdeveloped because there's so much emphasis put on the left-hand side.
Right.
And the problem with that then is we shut ourselves down to what is a natural ability that we have.
Yes.
Now, Reiki attunements are like a reconnection to something that you already have.
Yes.
And you start to realize that there's so much more to you, not just to life, but to you than what you realized. And that's what starts to unfold. And, you know, intuition is what the ape, you know, the ape man, our, you know, primitive ancestors, they used their intuition to know if there was danger, you know, when they were hunting and gathering, and because they didn't have intellect, so they had to feel for what was going on rather than think for what was going on. Whereas nowadays, so many people are disconnected to feeling the situation rather than thinking about the situation. But we're told that at school, you know, if there's a problem, we work it out with our logical minds, we work it out with our brain. It's not, you're never told to, oh, well, what do you feel about this situation? What do your feelings understand your feelings?
Yeah.
And the best way to enhance your intuition, really, I believe, is to enhance your 5 senses that you're already aware of.
So true.
Because the more that you pay attention to what you're seeing, not just what you see at a glance, but if you look at what's in front of you and then you close your eyes and then you open your eyes again and you look again at what's in front of you, you see more. Close your eyes again, look again, you see even more. The more that you pay attention, the more that you can see. It's the same with your hearing, it's the same with your taste, it's the same touch. You do that with all of your senses, and then when you amalgamate kind of all of this heightened senses, your intuition just comes flowing through. It really does. And you can see some spectacular things and be aware of the fact that this world isn't just what's here in front of us that we physically see. There's so much more.
It's so interesting you say that, because first of all, when you were saying about our intuition, it made me think of how that's literally our first faculty, right? Like when we come into this world, I mean, babies, that's how they communicate, or how they even really grasp anything. It's all feeling. Like they respond and react to what they feel. They don't understand our language.
Yeah.
So it is interesting that this thing that is our first stage of development and awareness, we're kind of conditioned to move away from and out of. But it just struck me listening to you say this, that everything that we've talked about has kind of centered around observation, whether it was like the attunement process, how we self-heal, how we work on ourselves, this, synchronicities, everything comes back to observation and self-awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does, and the whole process of, I think that you know, the spiritual path, as I said, it's about you.
Yes.
It's not about anything that's external. Spirituality is about you. So it's I know that a lot of people, that if you say that you're spiritual, people will just think, oh, they're into ghosts and they're doing this and they're doing that. You know, they kind of get it all wrong. They don't understand what spirituality is.
Right.
But for me, you know, spirituality is about a recognition of something that's inside of you that connects you to everything else.
Absolutely.
Every other human being, every other animal, everything else that's on the planet, you are connected to it, to the whole universe.
Yes, in the trees. Can't leave those with that beautiful picture behind you. Yes.
Yeah, the trees. Well, you see the trees as well. You can do some amazing ways of enhancing your intuition with trees, seeing the energy fields around trees. And it just is through kind of staring at trees, closing your eyes, opening them up, and then looking with your peripheral vision. It's almost like the same sort of ways that you can see auras, because everybody can see auras. If you taught how to do it, everybody can see auras. And with trees, you can actually start to, as you look at a tree and you start to relax your gaze and you look in between, you're kind of looking from the outside of your eyes, but you're looking in between the leaves and in between the branches, you can start to see amazing colours of light flashing about. They've got the most amazing energy vibration of trees. I love trees, as I've told you so many times before.
Yes.
So it's you can have some amazing experiences with trees.
Well, speaking of trees and nature, I am really excited to hear about the retreat that you will be hosting. So could you tell us about the retreat? But then, of course, where is this going to be located?
Yeah, so the retreat is, it's going to be a wonderful, relaxing first, a wonderfully relaxing experience, but also transformative. With all the things that we've been talking about, we're going to be meditating and using Reiki to release blockages to people's healing, and also to people's understanding of themselves and who and what they are. It's a real retreat of true essence, really. It's about people being happy to be who they truly are. And it's run at a beautiful guest house by a lovely couple, and it's in gorgeous, gorgeous North Yorkshire as well. So I'm really excited about it. Coming up in October, and it's October the 5th. The retreat's just a one-night retreat, but there will be more of them to come. And if people, we've still got a couple of rooms left, so if people are interested in joining us for a lovely overnight stay, it's very comfortable. Ryan and Andy cook the most amazing food. They have this gorgeous garden that's like a sanctuary full of homegrown fruit and vegetables.
Oh,
and
wow.
They cook those up for you. They cook wonderful meals, and I'll be leading lots of sort of group meditation and intuitive work and one-to-one Reiki sessions as well. People will be having one-to-one Reiki healing. So it's going to be lovely, really lovely.
That sounds amazing. And you said this is in Yorkshire?
Yeah, North Yorkshire in the UK. Yeah, it's in a lovely village called Coxwold. It's very, very calm, peaceful, picturesque. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and if anyone follows you on Instagram, and I have the links, of course, for how to follow you with everything in the comments, every picture you post, I'm like, where in the world is this? Like, everything you ever post, I mean, it's just so green and lush and beautiful. Yeah. It's always so beautiful. But I also saw the pictures of the retreat, and it also, I mean, gosh, I'm like, that is going to be so nice. Yeah. So people can, will they be able to get the information about the retreat on your website?
Yes, the information will be on the website, which obviously you'll be putting that in the notes, won't you? But that's northernlightreiki.com is my email address. And then people will be able to access my information on there and to be able to email me about it. There's kind of a book now form on there. I'm also contactable at Northern Light Reiki on Facebook. That's my business page, and on Instagram as well at Northern Light Reiki. So if people want to come along, that would be wonderful. It'd be great to see you. It's going to be a wonderful retreat, lovely atmosphere. There's already some wonderful ladies booked on. So a few more would be fantastic.
Yeah, so if you're going to be in the UK, be sure to contact Sam for this. But even with the retreat, so the retreat is in October. It's one night. It's Reiki, intuitive work, meditation. Of course, with you, I'm sure there'll be some kind of tree hugging. And then, but people can also work with you in terms of sessions and classes, because you do teach Reiki as well, right?
Yeah, I teach Reiki. I've got Reiki 2 coming up, actually, and we've got 2 places left for that. That's on the 14th of September.
Okay.
Saturday, the 14th of September. that's in North Yorkshire as well, in Dalton, where my home is. I teach from my home with that. And I've always got training coming up. I like to do training quite regularly, so that's on the website whenever I've got training coming up. I also run a weekly meditation group. That's a combination of Reiki and meditation. So I guide people through a really wonderful meditation, but I also go around and give people some individual Reiki as well. So it's calming, but it's healing as well.
It's really, one of my favorite things, because I think it really takes people deep into experience. That's a beautiful thing. So definitely, if you are in North Yorkshire, close to it, or plan to go to the UK, you have to reach out to Sam.
That's it.
Yeah. And Northern Light Reiki, I just want to make sure people are very clear. It's light singular. So northernlightreiki.com. And I will put all the links in the show description. And I know that you're very excited about this. This is like the launch of your brand new website. And I know you want to share a little bit about the person who put this together for you.
Yeah. Do you know, I'm so grateful. I'm such a technophobe. You know that, don't you, Yolanda? I'm just like, oh no, I'm not dealing with it. It's technical. And for a long time, I just had my Facebook page for such a long time, and then I branched out to Instagram, but I don't do very much on Instagram. Put some nice pictures on, but I'm not, on there much. And I'd kept having the message, come on, you need to be online more, you need to get stuff online. And I sort of put my hands up in the air. I was like, come on, universe, I need someone to help me with my website. I need someone that's going to be able to assist me to help do it. And it was literally the next day that a client of mine, who's a distance Reiki client who lives in Australia, she got in touch with me and said, hey, this is my new business that I'm doing. Wondering if you'd be interested. I'm literally doing all the marketing and logos and the Canva stuff, MailChimp, your newsletters, and websites for small businesses that are niche businesses, different kinds of businesses that really don't like all that marketing, salesy, all that sort of stuff. I was like, oh my God, my prayers have been answered. So literally, she has created me this amazing website. It's fantastic. When I've been going through it, I've just been like, going on to the next stage. Going on to the next. Just like, this is fantastic. Honestly, if it were up to me, there'd just be one single picture, a little caption there, and just saying, email me if you're interested. And that would be it.
Interestingly, this is like a big challenge for a lot of people in this realm, because the technical side really just isn't their interest.
That's it.
So do you have a website of hers, or?
Do you know what? If people can get in touch with me, so I can pass on her details, because she's just rejigging all her stuff. She's kind of rebranding. So she's called Amelia Pickering, and she is absolutely wonderful. And she's happy for me to sort of tell everybody about her, because, it really has. It's been a saviour for me. And the other thing is that the packages, she offers different packages of what you need doing, what you need support with. And she's let me know that 10% of the money that you pay to her as well goes towards a charity that supports the earth. So it focuses on cleaning the seas, planting more trees, and saving the bees.
That is
how amazing is that?
That is so beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, she's a light worker herself. She does Reiki, but she's really, she was sending me the email and going, this has been so much fun. Check out what I've done on the website. And I was thinking, this is amazing, but to me, that's not my idea of fun.
Yes.
She's like, I've loved it. It's so much fun doing all this. So yeah, if anybody needs any support with the online side of things, please get in touch and I will pass on Amelia's details. She's been
beautiful,
amazing.
I'm sure your box is going to flood over that. So reach out to Sam regarding if you need help with the website and the online details, which can be challenging for a lot of us. Mm-hmm. Also for the retreat that's coming up in October for Reiki, intuition, and meditation. And if they want to come to you to learn Reiki, have sessions and meditation circles that you hold. So there's so much going on. And I'm so glad that you came on, because we do have people who listen. Obviously, you're in the UK, but we have people who listen from all over the place, all different countries. And oftentimes a lot of guests that come on are just here in the States. So I'm sure it'll be nice for our listeners over there in Europe to know that there are other people more local to them that they can reach out to for support.
Who doesn't want to hear a broad Yorkshire voice?
I love your accent. I remember the first time we were going to meet and you sent me a message and you were like, I don't know if you'll be able to understand me. And I was like, goodness, what kind of accent? But yeah, I understand you perfectly clear. I love your accent. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So I have to tell you, I'm so glad that we finally got to connect on here and share your work and have this conversation. You know, I love chatting with you all the time. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Sam.
Oh, thank you. You know, this is a really, really fabulous opportunity. And you know that I absolutely love your work. You are a guiding light for me. So honestly, the flow of grace is definitely going on right now.
Oh, thank you. Oh, love this. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll see you next time, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.